Have you been searching for a community that gets it? Join me, your host Monique, as we get real about the emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual effects infertility has on its victims. Let's connect and heal together. I am one in eight too. So today we have Zaakirah coming to us all the way from the south of the U.S., and she's going to tell us a little bit about her journey and her issues with fertility and how that all transpired. So Zaakirah, just give us a little bit of information about you, dear, and what it is that you do in your career life.
Yeah, so my name is Zaakirah, you did say it right. And I am a brand cultivating strategist. So what that means is that I help small businesses to, if not launch, then focus their brand on social media because social media is the new age advertising. And that's what I do. A camera or a photograph saved my life. So ironically, full circle, I'm also a photographer. So
Mm-hmm.
I love being able to tell visual stories. So I'm all things creative. However, I'm also a cancer survivor. So I recently released a memoir about life with childhood eye cancer called retinoblastoma. And the book is called Seeing Life Through a Different Lens. And of course, also in that book, I touched briefly, there's a small chapter on how that cancer leads to secondary cancers, which leads to the autoimmune disease that I have, which is PCOS, excuse me, polycystic ovarian syndrome. So that's what I have, and I've been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome since I was 13 years old. That was the first official diagnosis.
Okay.
I received my period or my menstrual cycle at the age of 11, so I was pretty young when it first came.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, my cycles have never been regular, and then I got a second diagnosis when I was 15 years old. Because even though when I was 13, I would put on birth control to regulate my
Mm-hmm.
period and it helped. But of course, as I got married later on down the road at the age of 21, then it started really becoming a bigger factor, I would say, once I realized, of course, I already knew that PCOS meant, for example, the reason for my deep voice or the reason for a lot of hair on my body, and then, of course, infertility. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and so once I got married, I knew that that was one of the first things they say. That's the first thing they always say, and then kind of scare us or try to scare us in that way of, so you won't get to have kids, right? So I'm 16 years old. I was not sexually active. I'm like, yeah, so.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
as the years went by and as I was even courting my husband, I'm like, so I have something called PCOS, and that means that I won't be able to have kids easily. I finally had to adapt to understanding the mentality and connecting. This was when the world of Facebook was really popular. So connecting with other sisters, CYSTER, as we call them, and learning that they have kids. They've had kids. It wasn't easy, but they have kids. So to kind of making that a conversation in our marriage. So of course, it's been a struggle. No kids as of yet, but at least the journey has allowed me to fully learn about my body, and I also fully learned that it's very important to heal not just the area down there, but it really all starts in the head. Mental, once it's mental, everything will work its way down, and everything will be connected, and everything will be fully healed. And then that's how I believe we're able to really become moms or become moms again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Wow, what a journey you've been on. You said how old were you when you got the diagnosis of cancer?
Cancer, I was 6 months old when
Okay.
I was first diagnosed with cancer, and then 9 months old is when I had the surgery. So retinoblastoma means cancer of the eye. So that means I had a surgery to remove my right eye. So right now, in my photos and whenever you see me on social media, I have a
Hmm.
prosthetic eye.
Gotcha. 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 Well, you look very beautiful in your picture, so I would never have known if unless you had told me. I can't tell at
Well,
all.
thank you.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about your journey as a photographer. I can only imagine the incredible photos that you capture.
Well, I think the funny, ironic thing is when I went to Ghana, West Africa in 2011, and I came back, with those photos. This was when I first started blogging, so that allowed people to, just really see what kind of trip I went on. I was with an organization called Operation Crossroads Africa, and it's basically the Peace Corps before the Peace Corps. So
Okay.
um, it was a small 2 month summer program where we got to volunteer as a teacher. And so when I came back, I posted the photos, and I would never forget this one comment from an educator that I've known a majority of my life. And she was like, you know what? I feel like I was with you. You took such great photos that I literally felt like I was with you. And that kind of became an aha moment for my style of photography, to
Wow.
capture the essence of humanity, to make you feel like you were there, or if it's a portrait section, whether maternity, whatever it is, I make you feel, see the good side in yourself. And so that is just kind of a matter of course, it's kind of summing up to everything that I've been through in my own life. It's also a matter of just how precious photography is, of freezing that moment, of
Yeah.
taking those wedding photos, taking photos for the first time in a while. There's a volunteer event that I love to volunteer with, this annual, and it's called Help Portrait, and it's mainly for the less fortunate, those who have never ever had a professional photo shoot, and this is a level beyond JCPenney photos. So for you giving a professional photo shoot for the first time, those are always fulfilling, because I'm naturally a helper, so I love to be able to help people and help them to feel good about themselves.
Wow. And I can imagine, did you feel like it was also healing for you as well in your
Absolutely.
own life? Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine that it was. In what ways did you come to self-discovery while doing all of this traveling that you did? Because you've been to quite a few places, and a lot of places that most people don't get to go.
Absolutely. I was blessed to go to 10 countries so far in my life. The very first international trip was definitely self-discovery, because it was with a group called Global Explorers, and they were either for those who were deaf and hard of hearing, or sign language and enthusiasts, those who wanted to be a part of and learn about the deaf culture. And so before that trip, I mean, I struggled in school. I'm always either the only one or one of few who wore hearing aids or had a hearing impairment. So to be around people where I know that I didn't have to worry about making sure my hearing aids are at tip top volumes. I can hear whispers and stuff, because we were signing or we were writing on pieces of paper. So that was great. Of a matter of self discovery, of learning also how to advocate for myself. And then the second trip was the complete opposite. I was with a big group. We were all ambassadors, and it was 2 weeks of going through 3 different countries, and I literally felt like almost the Rihanna 777 tour. We were just in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. And so I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel as fulfilled, but at least I learned, because even then I had to learn of how to one, maintain my diet, and two, just make sure to advocate for myself. Um, because of course there are people who don't know that I did have cancer, and then that this cancer affected my eye and my vision, and that because I was also of a certain practicing belief, I'm a practicing Muslim, so that meant I can't eat the pork like you all do. So
Right, right.
that was always a challenge too. And then of course that led to Ghana. Ghana, West Africa was after that, and so by then, of course, that was challenging. I was 18, and that's the legal age over there, so I was like, I thought I was
Yeah.
grown, and so we were a group of 10, 10 of us were in a group, but there were 14 of us all together in the homestay where we stayed. We stayed with a family of 4 or 5, because the lady was pregnant. And we all stayed in, it was like a 3 bedroom house. So the boys had one room, the girls had another room, and the homestay family had one. So of course that was challenging.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up an only child, only because my siblings are from my parents' previous marriages, and they're like half my age. So technically I grew up an only child, grew up always wanting siblings, and so that was interesting too. Of course, that was my first taste of marriage proposals too. So yeah, it was interesting. With every trip, I've just learned more about myself. And then it wasn't really until I would say I was actually a young adult, really exploring myself, once I moved to the Washington D.C. area, College Park, to
Mm-hmm.
go to photography school. Out there, it's closed now, unfortunately, but there was a photography school, art school rather, that was
Mm-hmm.
a branch of Boston University in Georgetown, Washington D.C. So I was in the D.C. area for 2 years, and that was literally me like having my own apartment. Well, first, the second time I had my own apartment, the first time it was student housing, and I had my own room,
Mm-hmm.
with a bunch of roommates. So it's been a journey of just exploring. And then I didn't, but by the time I was living in D.C., that's when I later had to make my own gynecologist and OBGYN appointment, in order to get birth control myself, because even then my periods were still irregular. Then I was able to manage my own diet too, to know like, okay, what foods were causing the inflammation and which ones were bringing it down. And of course, even at that point, I became sexually active too. So that was interesting.
Right, right, right. So when you were diagnosed with the PCOS when you were a teenager, from what you said earlier, right?
Right, 13 years old for the first
13 years old. And
time.
so when, if you wouldn't mind, if it's okay, when did it really hit you how, um, what's the word I'm looking for? When did it hit you? At what age and what point in your life did it really hit you about fertility and, always needing a doctor to help you possibly achieve pregnancy and conceive?
Honestly, it didn't really fully hit me until I was maybe a year or two into my marriage, and we were actively trying. And when we were actively trying, and um, I'm gonna go there. It's gonna be emotional, but I'm gonna go there.
No, it's
So
okay, love. Take your time. Take your time.
we were actively trying, and then it got to the point of I got so in tune to my body that I knew when there was a baby in me, but then miscarriages and ectopic pregnancies, and it's hard to talk about also because it wasn't well. There's this one photo, of course, photos tell moments in life. There's this one photo, we had just gotten married, and I looked pregnant. And even though my parents at that time, I remember too, they were like, do you want to take a pregnancy test? Because I think you're pregnant. And even though the pregnancy test said nothing, everyone around me who knew me were convinced that I was. And I was in denial because I'm like, well, I
Hmm.
didn't have a pregnancy test. It said no on the pregnancy test. And that happens too. I think that's one thing I had to learn of.
The false positives.
Right,
Yeah.
false positive.
Hmm.
So um, that's when I first learned of miscarriages. So I had to experience that. So that taught me that, okay, it is possible to be pregnant, but my body is different when it comes to the level of PCOS, because I can ovulate, I can get pregnant. It's just that my level of my high testosterone level, my low progesterone levels, um, don't allow me to keep babies. So that's when it fully really kicked in as far as the
Okay.
fertility side. However, I kind of sort of knew just how, I guess, powerful the PCOS was of course, I've always been bullied, I would say, for like my deep voice. But then once I started, hearing like Carrie speak and Issa Rae, obviously, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with my deep voice.
Right.
And then,
Absolutely.
of course, I was always also just bullied for always having like a lot of hair. So I do have, I don't even know if I ever say it right, but hirsutism of, too much hair. Um,
Okay.
like, so I have like, I've had always had like a little bit of a mustache. And
Okay. Okay.
of course, the hair on my arm would kind of always go back faster. And crazy story, when I was, I think I was 5, I I was exploring razors for the first time. My dad always had razors on. I explored razors for the first time, and the only hair I had on my body at that time were my eyebrows. So I shaved them off because I was like,
Hmm.
I just wanted to know, what it felt like to shave off hair. But but they grew back beautifully. But of course, for a while, I almost thought they were just almost too bushy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so, the level of hair, the fact that I had more hair than others, and of course, I always were able to compare because I had sleepovers with plenty of other girls who didn't have as much hair as me. And then, of course, I was always bustier than other girls, or got puberty, earlier. So those were always the signs growing up, because I would be asked either by other girls or just bullied by boys who, didn't want to admit it, but they were crushing on these things that they were bullying me about.
Hmm.
And yeah, but it wasn't until I was experiencing those things once I got married that I'm like, okay, this is kind of serious, and that my diet and my stress levels play a huge role into fertility.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of women who go through fertility treatments, whether it's just through medication or whether it's IVF like myself, they don't you know about these things, but you don't know how deep it is. So that really resonates with me, that you don't know how deep something is until you actually are looking to attain pregnancy, and all those things like that. Like, we spend so much time being on birth control to prevent pregnancy, and then when we come off of it, we don't realize that sometimes it's going to be difficult, even for people who don't have any medical diagnoses of infertility. It can still be difficult for them initially too, because the hormones have to regulate themselves and stuff. So
Absolutely.
you said that you experienced miscarriage and ectopic pregnancies.
Yep. So now the part, of course, I even, I even judge myself about it now that I think back on it. Um, Maybe it's just literally that rough time for both of us in the marriage, but like I knew that it happened because I know my body, and also because I had vented, I would say, to someone who did experience it, but I never once went to the doctor. So
Wow,
it was
wow.
like, I don't know if it was the superwoman syndrome or what, but it was just like I just let it, you know, have a cycle of bleeding out, because that's basically what it is, of bleeding itself out. Um, and yeah, I didn't. It took a few months for me to go to a doctor because um, I was just losing a lot of blood. Before a while, it was just like, oh, it's okay, it's whatever. But of course, that probably affected later on, because when we were able to try again, because I was able to go to the doctor and get um the medicine, and then birth control. Well, birth control first to clear out everything, because I did eventually admit to the doctor, like, I had a miscarriage and it
Hmm.
was bleeding for a while. And she's like, okay, let's use this medicine to clear out everything. Then use this medicine to ovulate, and then this medicine, for this. So I'm bad with medicine. So like I knew that I had an ectopic, because I can, I can tell now when I am pregnant. Of course, the um, symptoms for when your period is coming and when you're
Hmm.
pregnant are very similar, but it was
Hmm.
obvious to me my period did not come. So it was obvious that it was pregnancy, even though the pregnancy test was not showing it. It was obvious. I could tell within me. But then, of course, I just started, because I knew I sucked so much when it comes to medicine. The next year, we kind of both agreed to just go the holistic route of just trying to at least first manage the diet. Let me see how much I can change my diet, and that helped. I would, drink spearmint tea, eat more of the colorful foods, the stuff that I can just, heat up on the stove and cut and chop, not too much frozen or canned food, which is most of the stuff that's processed. And then disciplining myself when it came to eating out, of if I wanted to be more plant-based, if I wanted to be more vegan or vegetarian or pescatarian, I have to say, I can't
Yeah.
have XYZ on my plate. So that sometimes that required something as simple as asking for the Chick-fil-A salad without the chicken, you know? So
Right.
yeah. So that's kind of the where we ended up, of just managing the diet. And then the hardest part, of course, is managing the stress level, because we do live in a country with instant gratification, and then we do live in a country where it's so easy to get caught up emotionally when your friends or associates or acquaintances announce their pregnancies or start to show their pregnancies at work, or of course, your favorite celebrity becoming pregnant, if not the first, second, or third time. Just kind of managing your emotions that way, of
Yeah.
not comparison, not having the fear of missing out, because that took a while too. Of like, I thought, we were supposed to have 3 kids by now, and it's not there yet, and we're both getting older, so now what? But it just took a while to fully accept that what's for you is for you. My favorite song in 2000, I guess 18, because that's when it really came out, was Meant to Be. It's kind of a country pop song, but Meant to Be by Florida Georgia Line.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep.
Yeah, I had that on repeat, and I just started implementing it in my own life, especially when it came to fertility and becoming a mother. So I think I really just had to heal also, because once I finally finished my memoir, and then I realized a lot of things, especially when it came to the fertility journey and the marriage journey as well. So just a matter of just healing.
Yeah, that's a point that, um a lot of women and men who are suffering, and whether they're married or whether they're single trying to have kids and stuff. It dealing with and sitting with your pain and your losses and all the overwhelming feelings that come along with that, and the grief, because let's not forget, although it was miscarriage and it's ectopic, you're a mother who lost babies who were very, they weren't uh, considered full term yet, of course, but when I hear stories of miscarriage from women who don't have kids, I always still look at them as a mother, because most of the time that you're pregnant at that point, and you still grieve the same way, whether it was a baby that was out of the womb or whether it was like a stillbirth type of situation. So um, healing is it takes so much time, and it takes so much energy, and it takes a lot of self-discovery. And I'm pretty sure that you probably got a lot of your healing from writing your memoir.
Absolutely. And I also appreciate you saying that because I've thought about that. I'm glad that more, at least around the holiday season, there were more Facebook posts, for example, that kind of said to be careful of or look out for, those families who are struggling. When you announce your, pregnancy, be careful of those. Don't speak in a tone of I'm pregnant, you're not, because you don't know anybody else's story. And I do appreciate that, because there's also a friend of mine. Now, I don't even know. I think either we were really that close
Mm-hmm.
or just knew, but there was a Mother's Day. And I think this was probably around that time that I had or I was in denial of being pregnant. And she sent me a happy Mother's Day. It was May, and she said happy Mother's Day. But of course my immediate reaction was like, I'm not a mom yet. And she's like, yes, you are. So, but I'm glad you said that, because yeah, even though I was not able to name my baby or feel my baby kick or anything like that, yeah, I'm definitely a mother, still meant to be a mother, and that's definitely something I had to put at least on my vision board. For it's not
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
it's not that it didn't happen. It will happen, and I'm gonna be a great mom because of all these experiences.
Absolutely. And I think that that it will, well, I know from my own experience going through fertility issues and having IVF and such, it has made me more appreciative, and I take more time for mindfulness and just being in the moment, as a mom, and just, watching my son now play and do just even the smallest of things. It makes you more appreciative. And it probably, you've had some lessons like that before, with your difficulties with your health over the years. But it's something different about when that maternal instinct really kicks in, and you just see things in a completely new way, and you see life in a different way, and you view your body and yourself in a different way as well. And I think that more people, especially now with social media, like you were saying, because everything is so in our faces, and a lot of people complain about having to be sensitive and stuff with posts and messages that they post online, but you really have to, because we are we are posting and making messages and putting out information, and anybody can see it, whether there's somebody we know or somebody that's a stranger. So it's just so many triggers on social media, and sometimes I think you have to take a break. Did you ever take a break while you were going through everything?
Absolutely. Now, ironically, not when I was going through everything, but once I was at a point to be able to process everything. So there's a point in, I guess, my life, our marriage, and even in the book. I briefly talked about it as a chapter in the book, where my husband and I were considering separation. It was so rough, not just the family building or lack thereof, or just the stress of also him trying to figure out where he wants to do, where he wants to be, and me too. I've been very in tune to my purpose, and I knew what my purpose was, but I wasn't following it per se. Of course, when you follow your path, you never steer too far off, but I felt like at that
Mm-hmm.
point I was following it. So there's the point where I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I'm a water girl at heart by nature, and I wanted to move back home. So I did that for 6 months. And originally I thought we would just, if I move there and I do well, then, he'll come down and we'll be able to start over. I'll be closer to the doctors that know my health. and then we can try again. We're starting a family. But that,
Right.
God had other plans. So, we ended up, we basically just time apart for 6 months, and then we came back together. And when we did come back together, I took a social media hiatus. I also took it because not only was I just trying to stay away from those who were announcing pregnancy, but who were like traveling, because I knew I couldn't at that moment, because I had to save up money. And then of course, saving money to kind of get ready for just starting fresh by, because I love food too. So just making
Mm-hmm.
sure
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't just unfollow like a million bazillion accounts. So I just, took a hiatus for maybe one of them. I didn't have to, well, because I am, I guess a smaller little micro influencer. Maybe I just announced the hiatus on Instagram, but I was still active on like Facebook Messengers. I was still in touch with friends and family. But
Gotcha.
I did, take a break, and that was great. I was able to, I realized how much time I did spend, when I'm not doing anything, when I could be working on myself, of, writing down what visions and goals I want to achieve, and how to really, change my mindset, shift my mindset to more positivity. And that definitely helped. I think I did that for maybe about a month. People do it, for 6 months. I've seen people disappear for a whole year. I've seen acquaintances, photography and creative entrepreneurs just disappear for a whole year. And then I see them come back. I'm like, oh, see, I didn't even know you were gone, but I'm glad you were gone, because that was good for you. But yeah, if you need to take a break from social media, if, even as podcasting, if you need to take a break from creating, do that. Even there was a point
Right.
in 2015, 14, where I literally could not pick up a camera for a whole year, because that's how um, stressed I guess I was. I was going through a funk. It was definitely a depressive funk for a whole year. And so it took a while. Well, that's when I actually learned about seasonal affective disorder, that if the winter comes, so do the winter blues, that it can affect.
Yeah, I have a friend who deals with that sometimes, and it's very difficult. A lot of people don't realize how hard it really is with the seasonal depression and such. That's amazing that you and your husband were able to come back better, stronger, and wiser for your marriage, and you guys chose each other again. I think that's very inspiring when you have so many difficulties going on surrounding fertility and just life in general. And sometimes you need a break too from your spouse. However, you guys got to find a way to do that. Did you guys seek counseling at all?
um yes and no. I think the closest we get to counseling is our elders, our parents. I, would love counseling. I think I attempted therapy. Um, I attempted therapy, and so the hard part about therapy is, for me, it's like, because they see that I'm so in tune to myself, that there's the first therapist was like, "You seem to have a good head on your shoulders." So I'm like, "Okay, but I still need you." So
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
matter of just finding the right therapist. But I would say I'm grateful to have had those friends who are, social workers and, psychologists, or even if they're just in school in the making, but they're the ones who I can turn to. And then at least it's unofficial, but they know how to ask the right questions, and not be judgmental. And they have been my, unofficial therapist. But of course, sometimes it's just a matter of just going to do it yourself. If your spouse is not willing to do it, just go do it yourself. And sometimes they will follow. They will explore their self on their own, and then come back around and admit their faults and things of that sort. So.
yeah. That's amazing that you guys were able to do that and come back together. I think it's important that you find a way to because when you deal with miscarriages and fertility issues and infertility, you have to almost, like, if you're not growing together, it makes it and you're not dealing with the issues together, it makes it very difficult to find common ground, which we know in marriage is like the number one thing is compromise sometimes, and finding common
And
ways to
communication,
and
really.
communication. Yeah, and that's a big thing. And then I've heard from a lot of women, and I know for myself dealing with infertility, very difficult to communicate how you feel without, like, kind of like dismissing how your spouse feels. have you ever felt like that? I felt like that before dealing with infertility. It's like, how am I supposed to explain how I feel and then at the same time support him?
Absolutely, yeah. I've definitely felt that way, and it's hard, especially if it's not a man who I would say fully understands the anatomy of a woman's body. Like they understand pregnancy, but they don't understand infertility. Like they've seen women
Right.
pregnant give birth, but they've never seen women like struggle or miscarry or things of that sort. So of course, that gets difficult as well when there's a man who's been raised a certain way and has seen a certain thing. So of course, it gets difficult to find articulate the right word to explain why this is painful and why this is happening and why this has always been this way. I remember at one point, thank goodness for my parents for also just kind of helping us. Because I remember one point, it wasn't so I don't see, maybe it's just the cyst acting up, but I was in so much pain and I was bleeding to the point where he really didn't know what to do. So what he did is, my parents live about 2.5 hours of a road trip away. So
Okay.
like, we're gonna go to your parents. And so that was the right choice in that time, because my mom knew just the right herbs and teas, to help reduce the pain and stop the bleeding. But had, of course, that was one of the instances of, he'd never experienced that before and he didn't know what to do. So the first thing he did is turn to my family. And so of course there's gonna be moments like that of not knowing how, like I was in too much pain to even articulate. I wouldn't even know it. I didn't until I called my doctor, because it was the weekend. I
Right.
didn't call my
Right.
doctor on Monday, so I couldn't even articulate or even get an idea of what it could have been. So yeah, there are moments like that, definitely.
That's great that that you guys, well, first of all, it's great that he has a relationship with your parents where you guys can do things like that, like you can just at the drop of a dime just go ahead and go and get what you need and get to a place where you can get the help that you need in that moment. So that's amazing. And I was going to ask you about your book, because I think a lot of people will resonate with your book. There are some women on the community in Instagram who have cancer, who have had cancer, they're in remission, and they have suffered, infertility because of the cancer. So tell us a little bit about your book and what that's about.
Absolutely. So yes, my book is dedicated literally also to all cancer survivors, not just those who are the parents of children with childhood cancers, or even those who are of my age and have survived, to be adult childhood cancer survivors. It's literally dedicated to all cancer survivors, because we literally, my mom and I also write in the story because she shares from her perspective, from the parental side, because I don't remember, maybe PTSD, but I do not remember the surgery, which was, I was 9 months old. My first official memories were age 3. So I'm able to tell those stories going on up. So, of course, as I'm able to tell the stories, as I become a teenager of going through those life cycles. And then, of course, once I became an adult of, experiencing entrepreneurship and then working in retail and things of that sort, my mom shared the perspective of just choosing, the best education for me, and how to just follow intuition and follow her faith and stay faithful through the emotional turmoil times, to just kind of make sure that I'm on the right track and that I'm, going to be okay. And not
Right.
the word disability or the word cancer hinder me or slow me down. So the details as to what the decisions that were made, when it came to helping me to experience 10 or so countries and to experience education. I went to charter schools, Montessori schools, faith-based schools, um, technical schools, and then, of course, it's what inspired the entrepreneurship journey. So it's called Seeing Life Through a Different Lens, Survivor's Memoir on Overcoming Adversity with Resilience. So that's literally what it's mainly about. There's so much adversity that we have faced, that we talked about, and there's how we overcame it. I guess what some people have also said from the pre-reviews that I've received already, of how we've thrived with grace. So
Right. Exactly.
so that's definitely what the book is mainly about. So there's going to be some education about my specific cancer, retinoblastoma, but it's very relatable for anyone who's related to anyone with cancer or who had cancer themselves.
That's great. I'm going to have to get a copy of it from your website and read it. I know it's a page turner, and it's filled with so much inspirational and encouragement undertones and everything. So I thank you, Zaakirah, for coming on today and telling us your story and being very honest and open, even though I know you still go through some, pain surrounding your miscarriages and your ectopic pregnancies and, what the future holds for you and your husband. So I appreciate you being willing and being brave enough to, to be open with me
Yeah,
and
no,
help
thank you
others
for
and help others cope.
yeah, and thank you for having this podcast and then having the vibe and the energy to allow, not just me, but every other woman to be able to be open and vulnerable about it. Because I honestly, I think this is my first time talking about it, so I needed that.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that, and that makes me feel all warm and fuzzy, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it, because I think it's important for people, and that's the one thing that I love about Instagram and Facebook is that you can connect with other people who may be able to help you in your journey in some way, even if it's just a simple hello, and it connects people that you wouldn't normally meet. So I appreciate you coming on. I really, really do. And I pray that your continued healing and peace and you guys is be blessed in your businesses and in your marriage life too. I appreciate you so much. And I'll have
Thank you.
everything for everybody to connect with you, your social media handles, as well as your website with your book and everything. I'll leave that in the show notes permanently so that people can connect with you and reach you and read your book as well. And I
Oh,
thank you
perfect. And
again,
I think if
Zaakirah.
I may, I want to add because it's kind
Mhm.
of recent. I kind of was working on it this past week.
Sure.
But my book is, of course, on my website, zaakirah.com/book. And then it's the ebook version is on Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, Apple
Mhm.
Book, and Google Play. So that's all recent and that's all there. So, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to look it up and get those links to make it easy for people to just click and view it and purchase the book as well. But I thank you again, Zaakirah, so much for coming on. I appreciate you.
Thank you.